Karen slaps me in a store for ignoring her. Biggest mistake ever. A couple years ago I stopped at a Lowe's to exchange my empty propane tank. I had just finished securing a new one in my trunk when I heard a shout from across the parking lot. "Excuse me, can you help?" I looked up and saw a middle-aged woman having trouble getting a microwave that she just bought into her trunk. No problem. So I went over and helped her. The microwave wasn't too heavy and it fit perfectly into her car. She thanked me, I nodded, and started to walk away. I was a few feet from her car when I heard her say, "Aren't you going to take my cart back up there?" I turned around and saw her pointing at her shopping cart, and she said, "Take my cart." I was starting to get a little agitated and said, "Oh, you know I don't work here, right?" She said, "Yeah, I know, but you should still be a gentleman and take my cart." I replied and said, "No, I was helping you out with a microwave, but I'm not about to take my cart now." She yelled, pointing to the store. Okay, whatever. I didn't want to get into an argument in the middle of a Lowe's parking lot. So I sighed, walked back to her, and took her cart. I started to bring it back towards the store, but this did not quite sit right with me. I was okay with helping her with the microwave, but she was certainly capable of doing this part of the job. If people always do this kind of thing for her, she'll never learn her lesson. I was about 10 feet away from her when I decided to stop pushing the cart back and wait for her to get into her car. As soon as she shut her door, I turned around, walked back to her parking spot, and left that shopping cart right behind her car so she couldn't leave without getting out and moving it herself. I hope that wonderful lady is having the best of luck with her microwave. Story 2. So today, my husband and I were feeling bored and adventurous and decided to make a pilgrimage to a posh coffee bar in our city. We've been meaning to go for months, but never got around to it. We pull in the lot and it's packed. 10:45 a.m. on a Sunday, so we expected it. As I'm getting out of the car, a mommy next to me is struggling to get 3 kids out of their seats while her husband stood by the front of the car watching. Not helping. I hop out and excuse myself and walk into the cafe with my husband. There's a huge line. 2 more people come in after us, and then the mommy and her horde. She immediately starts complaining about the line. She complains loudly to her husband at first, but when he's clearly ignoring her, she decides to complain to thin air. She's saying stuff like, "Why is this line always so long? God, why don't they have any more staff? Why does every person have to come at the same damn time? Ugh." She eventually asks the couple in front of her if she can go ahead because her kids are really, really hungry. Insert guilting sad face here. These saints begrudgingly say sure, so now they're directly behind my husband and she then says to me, "Excuse me miss, may we have this spot before you in line? My children have been waiting a long time and are very hungry." With the nicest voice I could find, I said, "I'm sorry ma'am, but we've been waiting a while too and are also hungry. The line is moving faster now at least." I gave her a smile even though she was glaring at me. I turned back around only to hear her mutter, "Wow, what a BTCH. Can you believe some people? How rude." It took all my effort not to react. My husband is a conflict avoider, but I'm not. But I respect his wishes enough not to cause a scene in public when I'm with him. Eventually she starts telling her husband how they're always out of the Spanish breakfast sandwich she wants and she better get it this time or she's gonna be pissed. This is when I concoct a seriously evil plan. I check my watch and it's 10:55. A minute or two later, it's our turn. Husband orders his soy chai and I slowly order my vanilla nitro cold brew with cream, or no, not cream, sorry, with soy and an extra pump of vanilla. The barista rings us up and as I check my watch it's 10:58. I ask to add the Mediterranean spinach breakfast sandwich to the order. She says sure, no problem. She gives us the total and I'm digging through my purse for my wallet and darn, I just can't seem to find it. More digging. Oh, there it is, finally. I hand her the card, wait for the receipt, and slowly sign. I pack my purse back up, say thank you, and walk away. Husband says, "You're hungry. We just ate breakfast an hour ago." I told him I'm not hungry, I just had to do this. And he asked, "Do what?" I nod towards the mommy, and the husband looks over, and she orders her coffee and some juice things for the kids. She doesn't even ask her husband if he wants anything. And then it happened, she says, and 1 Mediterranean spinach breakfast sandwich. The barista responds, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. We just sold the last sandwich and breakfast stops at 11. We have all of our lunch options today, though." The mommy looks at her watch and yells, "What? Are you kidding me? It's 11:02. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the company policy is to stop breakfast at 11. Is there anything else I can get you?" At this point, the mambai is screaming and says, "Get me your manager. This is ridiculous. You just sold one a moment ago." This is absurd. The manager came over, explained the situation and apologized, but he refused to give in to make her a new sandwich. Bless her heart. The ma'am retracts the entire order and stomps out. She's red-faced and yelling to her car. My husband was trying to hold back his laughter. Our order came up and we grabbed it and went back to the car. I'm unwrapping the sandwich and take a bite exactly as I'm trying to scoot around her and say, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am. I'm just gonna sneak by you real quick." And she is glaring at me. The worst death stare I've ever gotten. I get in the car and unwind the windows ever so slightly. It's hot today, right? I slowly unwrap the rest of the sandwich and take a few more bites, passing it to my husband. As soon as he pulled away, we burst into laughter. Story 3. So I'm a delivery driver for a major food delivery company in a major college town in Texas where everybody loves maroon normally. It's not bad. It pays pretty well and the customers are generally fine, though you'll always have idiots in every service job. This, however, surpassed anything I've ever experienced before. I get an order alert on my phone. Relatively simple but expensive order from a restaurant nearby. In the portion for delivery instructions, the customer explains that I need to call her once I arrive, as ringing the doorbell would disturb her autistic son. Okay, no problem at all. I received therapy for sensory issues when I was a kid, so I'm gonna be even more sympathetic to that than the average person. I receive the order and drive over to the house, which is in a nice part of town. I give the customer a call. The young woman answers, tells me to come up to the door, and I do so, and then enters the entitled mother, who strangely was fairly attractive and did not have the typical Karen haircut. I said, "Here's your order, ma'am. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" She responds, "Yes, my son, he's autistic and people like you don't understand how difficult it is to raise him. I shouldn't have to pay this much for food. Can you give me a discount?" Me, baffled, said, I'm sorry ma'am, but the app calculates your order total, not me. It's already been paid for." The entitled mother did not like that answer. Her face changed from a smug smirk into a snarl. I suppose I didn't realize how ridiculous the idea that people would pay for their own food is. She says, "Well, why don't you pay for it then? I'm not sure if you heard, but my son, he's autistic. Don't let him go hungry." I told her, "I'm sorry ma'am, but that goes against our policy. If I paid for your order, I'd probably be fired." And she says, "Good. You're a useless driver anyway. You're disgusting. My son is starving to death. Since I've had to go through so much trouble with you, you should tip me." I told her, "I can't do that ma'am. And here's your order." I dropped the food gently on the ground between us and jogged back to my car. She was shouting something unintelligible, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. Unsurprisingly, she gave me a 1-star review. I contacted support about it the next day and told them that, yeah, I had a crazy lady yesterday that started demanding that I pay for her order and even that I tip her. I tell them the order number and the address, and the service rep says, "Yikes, you're the third person to complain about her. 1 or 2, I'll take with a grain of salt, but 3, you're probably out. I'll try to get her deactivated. If so, her review will be off your record." Story 4. So, I'm an 18-year-old male. I was born completely deaf and mute. Also, I'm partially blind in my left eye. I've lived with my sister, who's 28 years old, who's been taking care of me since our parents died. Recently, she got married and went on her honeymoon, so I'm on my own for a few weeks. This happened yesterday. Usually, whenever I go out, I'm accompanied by my sister due to my disability. But now, since she's on her honeymoon, I had to go out alone. There was a new supermarket that opened in our area, and I needed some items, so I decided to go there and grab them. It was my bad for wearing a red-colored shirt, almost similar to the employees working there. But if you look closely, you can see that it was not the uniform. I was at the electronics section looking for some batteries when I see an old man struggling to get some DVDs from the top shelf. Since I'm tall, I helped him and he thanked me and went on his way. Then I began looking for the batteries. That's when I felt someone grab my left wrist. I turned around and a woman in her late 40s smacked me. She was speaking something, but I couldn't follow her lips as she spoke too fast. However, I was able to catch some words like "you," "ignore," "job," etc., so I signed to her that I'm deaf. Apparently this was the wrong move because she became more irate towards the signs. Again, she was yelling something, but I couldn't catch anything. So I took my notebook and started writing down that I'm deaf and mute. Before I could finish, she grabbed my notebook and pen and threw them away. She then slapped me again and pushed me. Luckily, by this time, a store employee came to see what the commotion was about. He saw me on the ground and helped me up. He then asked what happened. Before I can sign to him, Karen starts to yell at the employee. After she finished, I signed to the employee that I cannot hear or speak. Then I wrote down and showed the employee to call the cops on her. The employee nodded and called the cops, and Karen tried to run away, but security caught her. The police arrive in about 10 minutes. They first talk to the employee who explained the situation about how Karen assaulted me because she mistook me for a store employee. One police officer comes and speaks to me. I understand that he wanted my version of the events, so I wrote everything down and showed it to the officer. Then they went to check the CCTV footage. Then they came back and asked me if I wanted to press charges, and I gladly said yes. Karen was shocked and placed in handcuffs and given a free ride at the back of the police cruiser. The manager then explained to me that Karen thought I worked there and she became angry that I ignored her and wonders if I can drop the charges for that mistake. She had been standing on my left side, so I obviously couldn't see her. The store manager then offered me a 50% discount on the products, and I texted my sister about the events that happened and she was livid. Oh, and did I mention that my sister is a lawyer? She told me herself that she'll be handling the case to see that Karen would get maximum time. Court date is around 40 days. I'll update after the court.